Hi guys, this is an S&P 500 technical analysis update for 19th October 2020. So quick update here for the YouTube side of things. If you guys want to join the masterclass, everything is here. And then the next tab is the secret Facebook group access, where basically we cover everything on a semi-weekly basis. So basically twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. Now, as regards to the masterclass, those who have purchased it, we are going to get some webinars sorted here pretty soon. I'm just waiting for people to engage with the masterclass and absorb the education, because if this is all brand new to you, it can take quite a long time. Well, it doesn't take that long, but if you don't know about the volume patterns and the profile patterns and the Elliott patterns, the price action patterns, it can sometimes be a little bit confusing at the start. And so we're going to get some webinars set up, 10 in total, to basically cover any questions that you may have. So if you've purchased the masterclass and you've been following me for a few years, I would recommend just work through it as carefully and as precisely as you can. Try to understand the core concepts, and any questions that you have, just write them down. We are going to be going through them, and then we're going to get a Slack group set up. So the Slack group will be chart only, with basically text boxes where people can basically write what their setup is. So you're going to have various lines there, 7 or 6 lines, 6, 7, 8 lines, saying, look, this is my stop, this is my target, this is which strategy we are using, be it price action strategy, volume strategy, Elliott strategy, and is there anything else fundamental perhaps driving that potential move? Perhaps it's a short squeeze, perhaps there's NASDAQ hysteria, perhaps it's a sentiment move, perhaps you're looking at trading earnings. So we are going to go through all of this. I just wanted to release it out there so people can absorb it and try to understand it. The first 10 webinars are basically going to be covering everything up until, I would say, here, because from this point onwards, minus head and shoulder entries and HDF entries, this is a little bit more advanced. I mean, this will come later on, where we cover futures openings, market internals, and some of the fascinating stuff with options. But I don't think you should be buying a call option if you don't, number one, know the probabilities, and number two, if you don't understand how to read a chart, because everything comes down to this. So like I said, we are going to be covering that later on. So if you want to join the masterclass, if you want to be part of those webinars, then obviously you can join. And secret Facebook group, there is a discount code going on right now. It's masterclass 75, which is basically 7.5% discount, rather than masterclass 5, which is 5%, and that's going to run only until the end of this calendar month, which is October. I think it's fairly priced for the amount of knowledge that you get. Okay, so let's cover what's going on with the stock market. So if we bring in the watch list, then, so those are our hype stocks that we like to have a look at. Let's cover the ES. So there's a couple of interesting things here just to note. The first thing just to say is, has it topped? Well, the answer is no. It's not topped. It's probably made some degree level wave 4. It's a little bit choppy. It's a little bit confusing. There's a little bit of overlap. I don't like how deep this has gone, but still, that is a tentative count. I've also seen and explored 1, 2, 3, 4. We're already in the 5. Either way, it's not important from the perspective that this is some level of wave 4. Whether this is the count or this is the 3, this is the 4, that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're already in the 5. I would rather take this count. The count is a lot more clear on the NASDAQ. But either way, before the US election, we're going to make all-time new highs. And still, there's a chance we go to 4,000. Now, we've spoken about the first check stimulating the move, the second check, which as it looks as though it's going to get released post-US election, that could very well be the sell the news event, because you need liquidity to basically offload your position to retail traders. I don't know who's buying the ES at 4,000. Now, in the group, we cover a lot of other things that I don't share on YouTube, like sentiment indicators, positioning indicators. Those are very, very important, and those are flashing quite concerning times. We also cover some of the flow from the dark pool index, as well as the excessive gamma positioning that's been going on right here for the last couple of weeks or so, all-time new highs. And there is severe lack of buying in other off-market liquidity areas. Let's just leave it at that. There's not a lot of buying there at all from big time institutions. So it kind of worries you. What is really propping up this market at these levels? Who is really buying at 4,000? Is it the big investment banks? Is it the smart money? I don't think so. There comes a point where we're going to have to call a top here. But for right now, we can't do it. We're looking at this to move higher. Does it top before the end of the calendar year? Would they do that? Well, let's wait and see. The day the ES starts with a 4, that's going to be quite concerning. There is a chance this gets dragged on, I would say, to February 2021 in terms of when the top is going to occur. Now, Nasdaq is a lot more cleaner in terms of its count. That's why we like the Nasdaq so much. It makes up so much of the S&P, and all of these Nasdaq stocks are just going vertical. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a lot more clean to me. And that's the count. As you can see, not too sure about 14.4 there, but 13.6 or so. 13.6 was the calculations that I had taken from the lows prior to any of this occurring. So clearly, if you want to learn how to get into these moves early, I think a fundamental basis and knowledge of this masterclass is really going to help you. So still, we're looking to go higher. Okay, chances are we're going to tag these new highs before the US election. Then it just comes down to, right, okay, stimulus check, the last bit of the retail FOMO, and it's the sentiment and the positioning is leading to an event here pretty soon when the Nasdaq starts with a 13. We have to be very, very careful up there. Now, let's cover the major stock, the number one stock that we have to follow, which I think is very important. So we got rid of this weeks ago. We were calling for 136. I basically tagged that. There is a chance you may never see this high ever again in terms of this calendar year, but also this decade. That could be a decade top in Apple. And obviously, Apple is pretty much in everyone's ETF. I mean, there's over 300 ETFs which hold Apple. I think it goes to $32 at some point over the next couple of years, which basically here. So if Apple has topped, it kind of makes you think, who is buying the Nasdaq at 13,000? Let's just say, hypothetically, Apple has topped. So if Apple is then obviously doing this, right, and the Nasdaq makes a new high, because we've just said that, then clearly there's divergence there. There's divergence between the one stock that makes up 8% of the S&P and the Nasdaq. And that can't continue for too long. So I think the way this has moved here, technically that is a top. And not only that, it's the completion of this entire cycle here in Apple from all the way down here. From here. Technically from here. So that's a 23-year cycle technically. If you read that as a 1, this as the 2 into 03, all of this prior to 2008. Sorry, let me get my bearings right. What did I say here? Where's my running flat? Yeah, that was the 4. A, B, C, D, E, yes. So, sorry, that was the 5, that was the 3. So let me just take that back. The count as I had it was that this was the 1. That was the 1. That was the 2. That was the 3. And I was calling this a running flat. Because there's so much overlap here, it gets a bit messy. I was running this as an ABC running flat into here, then basically an ending diagonal. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and there's overlap. So that is the count that I am running. Now, if for whatever reason you don't think that's the count, you might say, okay, maybe that's the 0, that's the 1, that's the 3. Well, that also works. I can still get 3 into here. Maybe that looks even better. But either way, regardless of whether this started in 03 or 1996, it doesn't matter. The reason it doesn't matter is because from this point onwards in 2016, that to me is an ending 5th wave setup, which basically means this is topped here, and that's quite concerning. So I think it's going to go to 32 eventually. So what does that mean for the Nasdaq? You know, sooner or later, these stocks are going to top. I mean, look what happened here. Look what happened here. It topped here in 2000. How many years did Apple take to take out that high? How many years did it actually take? Well, it took nearly 5 years for it to take out that high. So the count at the start is a little bit messy, a little bit confusing. I don't think it matters. And the reason it doesn't matter is from this point onwards in March 16, it's very clearly been in an ending diagonal. I don't want to give any higher counts here. I think it's topped and everything has worked out pretty much exactly as we said, because we've been calling this last blow off top wave 5 for a while. So Apple's quite concerning. Microsoft you can have a look at too. Quite concerning up here. Not a lot of traction. You know, how long did it take to take out that high? Took 14 years. Amazon, let's not even go into Amazon. That's in a huge Wyckoff distribution. Doesn't look good at all. You know, it's not only Elliott wave that we have to use here. Fine, if you get 4,000, you'll get 4,000. That is very, very clearly a Wyckoff distribution. They've been distributing this for at least 3 months now, if not going on to 6 months. That may as well be the 20k Bitcoin top. It's got the exact same patterns. We cover Wyckoff. I think Wyckoff is an absolute fundamental piece of knowledge that everyone needs to know. It's right here. It's even more important than Elliott wave, frankly, because it takes into account volume and these volume price patterns that we mentioned here. How much higher is this really going to go? Fine, you might get 4,000. What's going to happen after that, though? You can clearly count 5 waves. You don't even need me to show you. You know, you could easily get 5. There's so many ways you can get 5 into here. 1, 2, all of that is a 3. You know, big time running flat here, 4, and then 5. You know, where do we think Amazon's going to go? At some point, we're going to have to call a top. So I think the Nasdaq at these levels is quite concerning. Clearly, the dollar, we've been, you know, looking at this for quite some time. It's below the 19 open. And you know, you can't get bearish at these levels. I think a big surge in the dollar here is coming either before the US election, on the US election, maybe after the US election. But it's just getting ready for a big move. Finally, Qs. If we take the Qs, so we've had quite a few counts from the lows here that Qs were going to hit 300. Look at how much volume is coming out of the Qs here. This is basically now in that final wave 5 where it's just going to be retail FOMO. But we've seen this with the Nasdaq before. I've done multiple crash videos here on the Nasdaq where we look at volume. You know, volume signatures are so important because you can anticipate these moves. You know, there was weakness here when Facebook dumped that 10,000% in a day move. You know, there's just weakness here, and we're going to get those same weakness signs already. There's divergence all over the place on the indicators too. So if you take your 1-to-1, you say, okay, fine. Well, there's your 303. There's your 1618 at 334. Certainly 333 to me seems possible. Maybe it's going to be an extended wave 5. So ultimately, more cautious on the Nasdaq. The big part of the move is done. A lot of these growth stocks, the big names, the big 4 or 5 names, I think they've all but topped out. Been out of this for a while. Another 15% to go, and then technically that completes 5 complete waves, and then there's a lot of uncertainty because then it's, you know, technically, you know, we could get a very, very severe correction here. Certainly the charts do suggest a one complete wave pattern, so clearly a lot of uncertainty as to how low is the Nasdaq going to go. And if Apple has topped, you know, that is going to be a big tell, I think. If the Nasdaq makes a new high here in the next couple of weeks, whenever it does, maybe it takes 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks. I don't think it takes that long. But if it does, and Apple, especially Apple, if Apple doesn't follow it, that is showing weakness of trend. And this is how you need to get ahead off the game, really, because a lot of people aren't putting the whole picture together. And that's why I created the masterclass as such. It's not just individual modules. Once you've gone through all of them, you can understand and put the picture together. And that's really what you're doing here with technical analysis, trading, and investing. You're putting the whole picture together. You're not just looking at one thing in isolation. It's the whole picture. Anyway, SQs, well, you know, clearly everyone's waiting to pick these up. But if we're saying Qs are going to break 300, what are the Qs at right now? What did we just say were for the Qs? Are the Qs at 288? So let's just say hypothetically Qs break 300, 305, 315. There's one more blow off top in the Qs. This could still go. I mean, I've got alerts. I mean, technically the SQs could go to 10. Wouldn't that be a bargain? And this is the thing, leverage ETFs, inverse leverage 3 times ETFs. They're not very good things to hold if the Qs are going higher, but what if there's a day in the next couple of months where the Qs are approaching that 300 level, maybe 310, maybe 333? Then everyone's going to be eyeing up the SQs. Certainly, if the SQs get to around 10, that to me, based on the percentage move that I've calculated on the Qs, that kind of works out. So something to have a think about. I mean, I don't think it's bottomed out here. That's just a bit of a flat pattern, I think, here. I mean, inverse ETFs are quite difficult. You never want to put too much of an Elliott wave count because they're just going to be tracking the Qs, but maybe it forms a flag. But one more dump in the SQs and then potentially are we going to get that? So something to think about. I mean, gold, we've been calling this top in the group for weeks now. I mean, I think gold is topped. I think gold is going to go to sub 1,000 in the next couple of years. That to me doesn't look good. That's a huge ABC flat, technically. I think gold goes to sub 1,000 in the next few years. We've been tracking this count here for the last couple of years on YouTube anyway, so everyone knows what my feelings are. Buying gold up here, certainly the USD value, I think it goes to sub 1K. That's an ABC. There's no, I think it's very optimistic with the dollar to suggest anything other than that. Bonds, we had a look at bonds recently. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, technically a rising bond market would lower yields. We know yields are going to go negative. That should be bullish for gold, but, technically bonds are going to have a breakout here just before US election, on the election, or just after. I think bonds go higher, yields go down, but that doesn't support gold. Whilst it should do, historically, lower yields are positive for gold, I just think the count on gold is going to get destroyed by the dollar. And then linked to that, silver. I mean, we've been calling this top for a while. I don't think this is the move towards $50 or anything. I mean, I think I've been saying it for a while. I think silver goes to $2. I think silver eventually goes to $2. Maybe it hits this line. I had calculated something like, I don't know, March 2022. So I would say silver breaks this low in the next couple of years. You're looking at $7 and $2. I mean, if that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, it's going to go to 2. If it's an ABC down, it's going to go to 7. So I think dollar is basically the place to be right now, and something to have a think about. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you want to have a look at the whole crypto side of things, we cover that in the group. Obviously, we're going to be covering all of this twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. There's a lot going on now with the US election. Like I said, if you've purchased the masterclass, you have any questions, just write them down. We are going to get 10 webinars done for Q&A purposes, and then we'll get a Slack group sorted. So that's going to be happening here pretty soon. So if you want to jump on that, you can buy the masterclass, use that discount code. That's only going to be available until the 31st of October. Then it may actually close down sign-ups for the masterclass whilst we get the Q&A set up for those who have already purchased the masterclass. That way everyone is completely happy, and we make the group fairly exclusive there. And if you want my take, then you can do that twice a week here as well. Anyway, I'll wrap it up there. Good luck in what you're doing, and I'll catch you guys soon.